Hi, I'm Mimi Belt, Vice President of Artistic Development for Television Network, and we are a broadcast network with an ever-growing digital media department.
It is new media. It is what every network, I was just commenting today with a couple of the guests that all networks are focusing their resources on digital. That doesn't mean that we're not producing for TV anymore, but it is absolutely the #1 focus in terms of new programming. It is new media. And because it is an on-demand environment, we see it all the time. We see that people, I'm sure many people still wait for their favorite Thursday night, 9 p.m. show, but a whole lot of people don't have to anymore because they can watch it the next day on the web. For broadcasters, for advertisers most definitely, because now they're looking at advertising on the web as being much more effective than having the traditional television commercials on air, because people get up and they walk away, or they TiVo and they fast forward through it and they don't watch them anyway. So there are good ways and good opportunities for all of you. That is definitely the way that television is going these days. They're saying even if you come in with a new TV show pitch, we want to see a digital component. Whether you're pitching for an existing show or a new show, why it absolutely for television has to be symbiotic. The TV 360 concept, the whole thing that it doesn't begin and end online. It has to have a relevance to television. We'll talk about this digital storytelling model that I was introducing a moment ago, and why interactivity takes it to another level. A lot of times people talk about, oh, I want to produce a show for the web. And yes, it's a different structure because maybe your webisodes are 3 minutes long instead of 1 hour. Yes, those things matter, but in my opinion, if you do not have interactive elements combined with that show, it does not become an engaging process for the web user. Web user is not a passive viewer. The web user is an active viewer. We Hispanics are spending as much time or more time sometimes on the web, certainly at home, and at work wherever it's possible, than the general population. Went directly to DSL. Never did the dial-up thing, not in general numbers. And the most frequent use is entertainment. It is music, it is movies, it is video games. There's also sports and news. For Hispanics, the most frequent activities are sending photos, communicating with family, email, that sort of thing. But certainly movie downloads, music, and video are becoming more and more popular. This is a symbiotic relationship. Basically, I already introduced it to you and introduced the idea that the mindset of the network is whatever we're developing needs to respond to both mediums, needs to go back and forth between TV and the web in order for it to be effective. And why is that? Because we can come up with the best online show in the world, and how are people going to find it? The big concern with networks has been, how do I promote it? And again, this is just a general slide, but again, it's how you can take all of these elements that we work with every day: video, audio, graphics, text, our data, and be able to respond to all these environments. Be able to get it, into all these different types of new media.
Hello, I'm Michael Smalder. I work for Eastwood Kodak Company. I'm the manufacturing quality manager for the entertainment imaging films, and I'm also Kodak's representative to an international standards committee to help transport imaging goods safely.
What types of X-ray equipment is there? The one that we're most used to is probably when you're going to the airport, you have your carry-on baggage, and then you put it through that machine. Well, that machine has a uniform low-level X-ray exposure, almost like a background light. It would light the whole wall. It's very uniform, and the strength of it. This is an X-ray unit, 0.1 milliroentgens. You don't need to know what that is, but on another slide I'll show you a much bigger number. The more X-rays, the more damage to the film. So the uniform exposure devices, they're used for carry-on. They're used for some checked baggage. Some of the units don't damage the film at all, up to several, maybe even 5 passes, but some of them will damage it on the first pass, and you don't know which one it is that you're going to be going through. So you always have to assume the worst case. When you have a medical procedure, you know, everybody's had regular x-rays, they might have had a MRI, a CT is like a CAT scan. It's a narrow beam. I think it's computed topography or tomography, but everybody calls it CT. And this is used for explosive detection systems. That's really what the security is looking for. They don't want anything to explode. That uses a very narrow beam of x-rays, and the strength is greater than 100 millirangens. This is 1,000 times what I showed you on the previous slide. A single pass will make the film totally unusable, and it'll vary, how it looks will vary depending on the orientation. There was a roll of film, but if it comes in from the side versus the top versus horizontally, it'll look different. And I've got a couple examples in the next slide. And it'll create an extremely dark line on all speed films. It's just very, very strong radiation. Here the film was probably tilted and it cut across the width of the film. You got diagonals, and here you've got one that goes the whole length of it. It all depends on how the beam hits the film. So what equipment is used in what airports? We don't know. They won't tell us, because if they tell us, they tell the terrorists, and if they tell the terrorists will figure out some way around it. So it's unfortunate for us, but it's understandable. We are meeting this month with the TSA and Homeland Security in Washington because we recognize this is a problem. We've got to find out some better solutions. To my knowledge, the DHL, the FedEx, the UPS, the shipping companies that have their own cargo planes don't x-ray stuff, especially if they know that it's film. They're not carrying passengers. They're not really terrorist targets, because you know, you'll get, I don't know, 4 people, you won't get hundreds of people. So the terrorists just aren't interested in that. So the security requirements are different for that versus passenger airplanes. TSA says that you should be able to get motion picture film inspected by hand. I know secondhand of incidents where they refuse to do so, but their website says that it should be allowed. It's only practical if you have a couple of rolls. You know, it's not dozens and dozens of rolls. There's also a limit how much you can carry, I suppose. But if you do that, they expect you to have a changing bag. If you have some dummy film so that can know what they're feeling for in the changing bag, that would help them feel comfortable that they were doing a good job. If you have a slower speed film, you might get it through undamaged. There is risk there. I'm not telling you Kodak guarantees that you can go that route, but the likelihood is less the lower speed the film. 500 speeds, very sensitive, and I wouldn't suggest any shortcuts with that film. This may be a last-ditch effort that you're willing to take the chance because of the consequences of not getting the film through, but I can't recommend it. And if there is a failure of the TSA personnel to hand examine, then you need to go back and try and work with the airport to say, okay, I'm doing this as a business, I'm going to have more shipments coming. How do I do this successfully? Who do I need to talk to? What are the procedures?